Hello everyone, my name is Todd. Today, I have a story to share with you about John Marston, brought to life by the imagination of Zero Combat. I truly hope you find as much joy in listening as I do in reading it. Let's dive in. John liked to walk at night, not because he had somewhere important to be, but because standing still made the past louder. He sat down and pulled his coat tighter and built a fire. As he looked across the vastness of it all, the plains he'd crossed, the rivers he'd followed, and the life he was still trying to earn. But for tonight, John stayed right where he was, alone with the land and the long road behind him. The night was quiet, in the way only the frontier ever managed to be. Not a true silence, but just the low breathing of the land itself. The wind moved through dry grass like a tired sigh, and the fire crackled as if it remembered brighter days. The songbirds were all sleeping at this time of night. The only songs that played were those of the bugs, the owls, and the night's lonely, somber chill. John sat close to the flames, elbows on his knees, hands scarred and stiff, staring into the wilderness as though it might answer him, but it never did. Fire had a way of pulling the past out of a man. Demons rose in it, voices cried out, as if they were right beside him, regrets that never learned how to die. John was older now, older than he'd ever expected to be. He had lived longer than the version of himself he once believed in, the one who assumed his story would end in a ditch or at the end of a rope. Yet here he was, breathing, aching, and haunted. Survival had not brought him peace. It had only given his memories more room to stretch their legs. It hurt now. The good times came back sharper than the bad. That was the cruelest part. The sound of horses nickering in the morning. The smell of coffee boiling over a campfire. Arthur's cough before it got bad. Before it meant something. Arthur, who had been a brother when John didn't deserve one. Arthur, who had looked at him with disappointment and hope in equal measure. Like John might still turn out right if he just tried hard enough. Arthur's voice lived in him now. A constant reminder to be better. He remembered Arthur at the end of his life. Too thin, coughing, but eyes still sharp as ever. How he'd leaned against that rock, breathing hard, staring out at the sunrise like he was trying to memorize it, as if he knew it was the last thing he'd ever see. He remembered the bad too, the robberies, the fear, and the way Arthur's temper could snap like a dry branch. But those memories didn't weigh the same anymore. Time had a way of sanding the edges down, leaving only the shape of what mattered. And Arthur mattered. John cried out into the night for answers to it all. Surely it must get better than this, he thought. But no answer came. Only the wind and the fire, the steady breathing of a world that kept turning, whether a man was ready or not. The hardest part wasn't the violence. It was the waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for someone to decide that John hadn't suffered enough yet. John looked up, eyes stinging, and he watched the stars. He wondered how many people he'd buried beneath those stars, how many names he couldn't even remember anymore. The dead didn't haunt him as much as the living, the ones he'd failed, the ones who had believed in him when he had no reason to deserve it. John had been shaped by hard times, carved into something rough and dangerous. He didn't want that to be the only inheritance he left behind. He wanted Jack to remember a man who stayed, a man who tried, even when trying hurt worse than running ever had. John stood slowly, joints aching. The past would always walk beside him. That much he knew. Some men escaped their ghosts. Others learned to live with them. He took one last look at the dying fire, at the memories flickering in its depths, and turned toward the dark, where his home waited. John pulled his coat tighter and started walking home, toward a ranch, toward a place built with calloused hands instead of blood, toward family, toward hope and something resembling peace, toward Jack, toward Abigail, toward redemption. It's been my genuine pleasure sharing this story with you all today. I truly hope you found it as engaging and meaningful as I did. Until next time, farewell and goodbye.